So I'm delighted to be joined today by Nadine Dereza. Nadine,
Hello there.
how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. It's great to be at the office. I've been to your previous
I
offices.
know, it's blown me away that you haven't been here for so long.
I know.
It kind of
took 3 years to get invited, but you're forgiven.
You're invited, you're invited so many times you refuse to come.
Yes, that's the real story if you want to stick to it.
Nadine, so usually kind of, as I'm sure, I chat to you about you, but actually I want to talk to you about some other stuff because I want to talk to you about fireside chats, which for me, there's been a surge of popularity over the last few years, and I love them personally, and I think the clients get so much value. And you are our absolute favourite to host fireside chats, so I want to spend a bit of time with you imparting your wisdom to everyone about the benefits.
Yeah, so fireside chats, I mean, they're not a new notion. They've been around for many years, but actually they've grown in popularity, as you've said, over the last few years. And particularly in the last few years, I've seen a huge growth in the demand for me hosting fireside chats, whether it's with a politician, someone who's made it big in the sporting arena, whether it's behind the scenes or actually as a sports person, or, in business as well. And, keynote talks still have their place. And obviously a lot of your business is based around that. But I've definitely seen a shift where fireside chats, people are beginning to consider them alongside keynotes. Now, if you've got a big enough budget, then you can have maybe both at your event. A keynote with one person.
Always a favourite for that.
Always a favourite for that, more business, or a fireside chat. And the beauty of fireside chats is that it's an informal setting.
Yeah.
Now, your good keynote speakers, they're tried and tested, they've rehearsed and performed, although they come across as spontaneous, they can adapt it according to the industry, but it's pretty much they're in control of things, and there may or may not be time for questions and answers afterwards. Whereas the beauty of the fireside chat is that it allows the guest to be at ease and to capture more aha moments.
Yeah.
So the very nature of fireside chats is that they're more intimate, they're more conversational, and they're less structured than, say, a keynote speech, or are they? Because the structure that's put in place is done in advance. So from my point of view, it's a lot more work for me to have to do, which I don't mind doing because it's a fascinating insight. So whether it's Claire Williams from Formula One, who used to run team principal for the Williams racing team, or for Vicente Fox, the former president of Mexico, or Gabby Logan, one of your hosts, who I had the absolute delight and joy of actually asking her questions during a fireside chat. What they do is they give a more intimate account, but that research that I have to do is very thorough. So whether it's reading articles, whether it's listening to podcasts or broadcasts and getting an insight into them, that's imperative, so that when you turn up at the event, actually this is a free-flowing conversation, which it is, but there is a structure in place. But that's not saying that you can't pivot in different directions. And having worked with Claire Williams now on a couple of times, and I'm working with her again later on in the year, no conversation is the same, even though the two of us are the same, because you are tailoring it. Who are the audience there? What is the industry you are speaking at? And whether you do the heavy lifting as the host to put those parallels in, and then tease out the answers from your guest, or your guest can actually put the parallels in, or both do it, then that makes for a really compelling event. So fireside chats, I think, are growing in popularity and continue to do so. And it involves the audience more as well, because they're interactive by nature.
So let me cut it, because absolutely you said about the amount of research the host has to do in order to make sure they're fully prepared. Let's start at the beginning. Kind of, you turn up as the host of the whole thing. Presumably, you've got to make the person comfortable, and you've got to kind of then buy into the fact you're not going to you're not there to trip them up, and it's not like Jerry Paxman interviewing. It's actually for that to get the best out of them. Give us some tools, tips and tips that you use.
You're right. It's not the how dare you moments. It's about building that chemistry. So that starts way before the event. And again, it depends on what access you have to the person. So, for example, Steve Wozniak, founder of Apple. Everyone knows Steve Jobs, but I was the first person to interview him as a fireside chat. And I went out for dinner with him in advance. We talked through the areas that we thought would be, worthy of discussion. I mean, anything's worthy of discussion with him, but he's a very introverted person, or certainly was at the time. And so it was really building up that confidence in him. But if you don't get the opportunity to meet someone in advance, it's having meetings online. So obviously when I'm ever doing any work with Speaker's Corner, you're arranging those really critical briefing calls. and you're getting a chance to talk to the celebrity, the business person that you're doing the fireside chat with. Often I'm asked to put the questions together.
Yes.
Those questions I will share with the guest speaker, because I think it's only right and polite to.
Yeah.
And often I create more questions than time permits.
Yeah.
So it's like, out of those, which are the ones do we really want to focus on? But still be flexible, that actually on the day you're going to pivot elsewhere. And where do you want to end? Because, again, there is a beginning, middle and end.
Yeah.
And then making sure that the person who's doing the fireside chat, your special guest speaker, can also input as well, saying, well, I'd like to talk about this as well. Some leave it entirely up to you.
Yes.
And even on the day, if you're meeting an hour in advance, so Claire and I had a quick tete-a-tete before we went live at a big show in Excel recently.
Yeah.
We quickly went through the question format again, saying, well, actually, let's cover this, but if we need to drop something, let's drop that, because we want to bring audience questions in too. So there is a lot of preparation involved, and it does take a skilled interviewer.
Yes.
So whether it's a journalist, a host, a moderator, then those are really the best people to bring out the best in your guest, because they're used to asking questions in a way that tease out the information, that offer unimaginable insights, new reflections, ask questions that a keynote wouldn't be able to get into the heart of.
I love it. So let me now turn to the audience. Like, again, as you mentioned before, it gives like great opportunity for audience interaction. And from my perspective over the years, it's always been like the 45-minute keynote and then the 15 minutes at the end. And so often the feedback is the speech was amazing, but the part where it blew up was in the Q&A, where it just went crazy and everyone really, because they get to ask the questions they want to ask. I suppose the same you talk about preparation with the speaker or the kind of the person who's being interviewed. How do you judge the room and how engaged they're going to be to ask questions, or do you just make the assumption that you're going to get questions out of the whole thing?
Again, it's about managing the expectations. So obviously flagging up front that we will have time for questions. And the one thing I would say is that we're still given often a 40-minute slot, and actually fireside chats could go to an hour to allow for that deeper engagement. And I think event planners need to be a little bit more, and producers more confident to go a bit longer.
Let's come back to the event planners.
Come back to that one.
Yes.
So for the audience, it is about creating that intimate environment where people feel relaxed and actually they feel welcome to ask questions as well. So it could be that you're doing a poll, a hands up, during the conversation to begin with. So people, have an understanding. So for example, in Claire's case, it's like, how many people have watched Drive to Survive, the Netflix series? So you get an indication of how much people know about Formula One. And that's just one example.
Yes, absolutely.
And actually you can go two ways. One, do live questions, which I like, but also if you've got an audience engagement tool like Slido or whatever else, there are plenty of other engagement tools other than Slido. I'm sponsored by them. That's a great way of the audience also seeing the questions coming in, and then them upvoting the questions that matter to them. I mean, sometimes you're always going to get some left field questions, and again, it's about managing that on behalf, so you can act as that conduit and steer away and actually add in some extra detail to the question if you think it's a little bit awkward, so you don't land the guest speaker in it. But I think 9 times out of 10, the audience questions are really spot on and on form. And actually, it's how you set up sometimes your fireside chat that makes it more intimate. So sometimes the smaller the space is, the more engaged and included the audience feel. If it's a cosy setting that replicates a lounge, then that can entice audience members to ask more questions. And no question's a silly question.
Yes.
It's about, making the audience feel, welcomed and thinking, what an amazing question. And often they're coming from an industry question, or it could be that they want to know, how high performance is a really hot topic. I know you get a lot of speaker inquiries around that. So people are really keen to find out, how can I manage a team and still, produce a high performance under pressure? What can I do? And often the people that I'm hosting fireside chats with have deep knowledge about that. They've been there, seen it and done it. And the amount of people that come after us into the audience and want to chat afterwards, whether it's to me or the special guest, saying, I found that so illuminating and I've picked up so many tips as a result of that Q&A format. But it's not just a normal chat, you're going deeper into it. But I think having a mixture, so it's not just all tech-based, but it's live questions as well. But don't end on an audience question.
Okay.
Bring it back, because you know how as a host to end it. So it satisfies, the event host and the event team, but also rounds up the session beautifully, and you can end up on a high as well. I mean, the other way to engage an audience is if someone's really well known, but actually not everyone in the audience may know them deeply or may know the subjects. Again, going back to Formula One, having a sizzle reel which showcases the person and what they've achieved in, say, 2 minutes, gets everybody up to speed. And actually that first question as well, doing a background question as opposed to diving in straight away into the nitty-gritty, also allows the audience to get engaged, because you're making sure everybody's up to speed with, here's a background question, or how did you get here? And then everybody's, singing from the same hymn sheet.
Beautiful. I love those tips. You mentioned it earlier and I stopped you, but we'll go back kind of to the third part of the equation is the event organizer, the event producer. Again, sharing my experiences, historically the problem with fireside chats is almost that loss of control of knowing what is going to be discussed. Here's a chance for you to kind of convince the event organizer, producer, the value of actually the fireside chat, what they're getting out of it, and how best we can give them that kind of comfort factor over we're not up to trip out the speaker, and in fact we're there to amplify what they've got to say.
And that's where those briefing calls really sort of help satisfy or settle any nerves about that in advance. But I think, you did a speaker breakfast recently, which I hosted, and I think that showcased fireside chats beautifully for some of your clients. So they got to see it in action. So if they've been unsure up until that moment, I'd say 9 times out of 10 or 10 times out of 10, all the clients there really bought into that format. But actually, if you're new to fireside chats, it's that briefing call and being on it and sharing the questions as well in advance. And also as a host, it's incumbent on me to know the industry well. And I sort of interview and have presented in a variety of sectors, pretty much every sector going. So again, going back to the iGaming world, which I hosted recently, a fireside chat, I made sure all the questions related to the iGaming world, that there were parallels between both Formula One and the iGaming industry. And the question I formulated made it very clear. So people sitting there going, oh, right, I get this now. I see how this relates to me. So you make it relatable, your questions, so it caters for the industry that you're talking to. Now, one size doesn't fit all, because audience members are made up of different shapes and sizes. The other thing for event organisers is that if you can make it more intimate, so it could be, a couple of armchairs or sofas. In a great big hall, you can't necessarily do that. That's not saying you can't do fireside chats in that, but the ones that are really intimate, the furniture reflects that, and the lighting as well. So I think event organisers, when they're doing their planning in advance, can think about that. How can we make the most out of it? So the intimate setting makes the conversation even more intimate. So that helps as well.
So can I ask, I think kind of you've mentioned the briefing call a couple of times, which generally happens like 2-3 weeks before the conference.
Yes.
As a host to kind of experience those things, how early would you like to be involved in the conversation?
Well, sometimes obviously I produce events. I'm involved sort of 6 months in advance, sometimes longer. But I think anything from a month out would be great.
And that's before the
event. So things aren't set in stone.
Before the person who's being interviewed actually can get involved, you've still got value for the client.
Yes, indeed. So, I mean, it could be longer, so there's no set time. But I think if you do it too far in advance, so one of your clients I work for, I get involved, say, 3 months in advance, because actually, and they're a lovely client to work for, and I've worked with them on consecutive occasions. And they're asking me for my ideas for the whole programme, because I'm hosting the whole event, not just the fireside chat. And that's really lovely to be involved, that they respect you and they are prepared to listen to your ideas and shape the content around that. So if you apply that to fireside chats as well, being open to your discussion, but equally you're reliant on the briefing from the client. Sometimes things too far in advance, the client doesn't have all the detail to hand because they're still finalising stuff themselves. And I'm always up to having a couple of conversations. So there's an event I'm doing for you in October. I've got my initial chat at the beginning of September, and we don't actually do the show until the end of October. So I'm sure there's going to be another chat as well. And again, I'm all for that. If that keeps the event organiser happy because they want to convey information, it gives me more time to prepare as well. The other thing I would appeal to event organisers is to, and I've mentioned it briefly, think about, that 40 minutes, which may seem like a long time, but for fireside chats, allowing an hour, because, there are so many questions in the audience, because there always are when I do fireside chats.
Yeah.
And if not, I know how to start them in order for the audience to get involved by, I wonder who feels this way, or whatever, or a poll, and, does anybody else share that experience? And, it's just holding fire, excuse the pun, for the audience to come in with their questions. It's so easy. Any questions? No, I'll move on then.
Yeah.
I've always held for a couple of seconds and I'm comfortable with that silence. It may feel like a lifetime. It's 2 or 3 seconds and then someone at the back puts their hand up and then suddenly everybody wants to talk.
It's always that first one.
It's always that first one.
Yeah.
So
what's your opinion of planted questions then?
Well, they can be planted.
Yeah.
I don't think I've planted many for many years. But
Because
again,
you're just comfortable with
the format. But some organisers always say, actually, we've got 2 or 3 people in the room who are prepared to ask questions.
Yeah.
And I think that's more for the Q&A format. If I'm hosting something, I've introduced, say, a speaker, and then we're hosting a Q&A afterwards. Sometimes people want to plant questions. I think now that we've got technology, we don't need to plant questions so much. Whether those questions are planted by the organiser in the tech, who knows? Yeah. And sometimes you have content producers who are just filtering out questions. Yeah. Hopefully no one's swearing or using bad language, but it's designed for that. There are usually filters for all of that. So not usually, because as the host, you're steering most of the questions. Yeah. As I said, it is a structured conversation, but it can pivot in a variety of different ways. So, the ones that work really well are the ones that can talk about sustainability, that can talk about tech, they can talk about high-pressured environments, they can talk about data-driven environments and what impact that means. They can talk about representation, equity, diversity and inclusion, cover so many bases, because often a keynote is like, here's the talk, and you don't really deviate from that.
Yeah,
your questions might do, but this is a golden opportunity to cover so many bases. And it's not just skipping through it quickly. Yeah. There's some real insights that the audience are taking away with. And I said, just on that feedback where people are just going, wow, I got so much out of that. I wasn't expecting that.
And I love it. And as the host and understanding the whole kind of what you're trying to achieve, you can go deeper as you find the little nuggets where people have sat up and...
Yeah, absolutely.
Time for one last question. And I asked this one last question on the basis of I've been asked this many times, and finally I've got someone I can ask it to.
Let's hope.
If you had the chance for someone to do a fireside chat with now, who would you want to do it with?
Who would I like to do a fireside chat with? Obviously, I've done Kofi Annan, Vicente Fox, Gabby Logan. I've done Sebastian Coe. I think there's a few. I didn't have more than one.
You can have up to 4.
Up to 4, because I've done Condoleezza Rice as well. Michelle Obama.
Okay.
I'd love to, because obviously she was at the heart of 2 terms of Barack Obama, and was instrumental in so many things behind the scenes, and was just such an inspiration to so many people. Yes. So Michelle Obama. In terms of a sort of a sporting icon, I think Gareth Southgate. Okay. Because obviously he's no longer the England manager, and actually he's more freer to talk about things. And even though maybe his style of football at times, we won't go into that, but actually he created a culture that people really bought into. So I think that's really important as well. And then in terms of, I suppose, female icons, well, I actually interviewed someone recently, but only for a short time, Alison Kirby. And I'd love to do a full hour fireside chat with her. So she's the chief exec of BT. Yes. And what she doesn't know about business and the telecom industry. But actually, again, she's one of these people who can pretty much talk to any subject. And when you're thinking about AI, and actually what I discovered, and she said to me, gosh, how did you find that out? BT are sitting on more patents for AI than all the ChatGPTs and all the other ones that you can imagine and think of. So someone like Alison Kirkby, I think, would be amazing to do a full chat with. Has that answered your question? I can't choose.
I know, I like the fact you can't choose. It is always a pleasure, Nadine. Thank you so much for your time today. Look forward to chatting again soon.